We are steamrolling through this much anticipated month of June for Miami football here at the Voice of College Football with Cam Underwood on the line, of course, from State of the U to take your comments and your questions for the next hour on the Canes. Please leave your comments in the comments section and consider the super chat contribution you can make to help us build the show and continue what we're doing here. Cam, how are we doing tonight?
Good. Hanging out. Can't complain. So, yeah, ready to have a good time.
All right, so the news of the day is a series that's been signed for 8 years from now, 2029 and 2030. Home and home series with the Auburn Tigers.
Yeah, so we're going to hit the other team in the state of Alabama. Obviously, we opened this year with the University of Alabama, and the other major school in that state is Auburn in Auburn, Alabama. September 1st, 2029 and August 31st of 2020, home and home between those two teams. So us and them, we are the front end of the home and home. So they come to Hard Rock Stadium first in 29, and then with the return visit is to Jordan Hare in Auburn in 2030. So, yeah, I mean, it's just another big-time non-conference game on top of Alabama this year with Michigan State, Texas A&M the next 2 years, Florida and Notre Dame, South Carolina and more Notre Dame with their tangential relationship with the ACC, although they're not a member of our conference and everything. Excuse me. And then it goes into, prior non-conference games like LSU and things like that we've had, with the Miami Hurricanes. So, I'm excited for it. It's another one of the it's a big brand in college football, Auburn. They have a name. Obviously, Cam Newton went there. They won the national championship. They've had, some other very good teams. The last time that we played was 1984 when Miami beat then number one Auburn with future Heisman Trophy winner Bo Jackson. I think we're like 7-4 against them all time. Would have won the last two with Auburn getting more of the wins when, Miami was before Miami became Miami. Like now, you know what I mean? Kind of in the 60s and 70s when we were kind of an also ran mid-major kind of program. But when Miami kind of started to level up, we've won the last two, but it's been, a long time. It'll been 45 years between games, between 84. Yeah, I'm right. Okay. Exactly, right? Between the times that we've matched up on the field with them. It's I think that should probably be about the season opener on September 1st or August 31st in both of those seasons, home and home. So kick off with a bang. Obviously, if you're building a schedule, that's going to be your major non-conference game. You might want to have a second Power 5 game, but that's not as high-ranking an opponent. Like this year, we have Michigan State in a complement to Alabama, so another Power 5 team, but not like a national championship contending kind of caliber team. So maybe as you're building out those schedules for future years, you're thinking of something like that in the years that we play Auburn. But again, if Miami wants to continue to, if we're talking about building champions and everything, which is Blake James's mantra and ethos for the athletic department, that we are building champions at Miami and things like that. To build a championship caliber schedule, you have to have at least one of these caliber SEC, Big 12, Big 10 championship contending teams, not one of the, Kansases of the world or something, but like a team that can actually compete. And I think that we've done that over the course of every year from now to 2042, with the exception of a couple because of Notre Dame with the times in the future that we're going to play them. So I'm excited about it. Craig T. Smith from our site is a little apoplectic about it because that might or might not have been something that he was writing about in the future. But, hey, you could do worse than having Auburn as your marquee non-conference game. So kudos to Blake James to continue to, at least on that point of getting top-level non-conference games, that one a year, he's done a good job at that. And regardless of how you feel about him, and I know that there's some people who have differing opinions of the athletic director, on that point, you have to invariably agree that he's done a good job of putting top-level opponents on the roster for pretty much every season.
I have a gripe with the complete scheduling process in college football. I'm not going to go into that, but as it pertains to the individual schools who are responsible for their own non-conference schedules, of course, the criticism comes initially from most people when a game is scheduled this far in advance because you don't know how good the program or the team's going to be. That's, while in theory true, and in some cases actuality true, when you schedule certain programs, you have a pretty good gauge. Some are more consistently great or good. Some are more sporadic throughout their history, but you would think that Auburn would be a formidable team, opponent, program at the time that these games are played in 8 years, because Auburn has consistently, since the time of Bo Jackson and his coach on the sideline. Man, how did I just blank out on Coach Dye? Anyway, wow. I never thought that would happen, but that they've been a national power, maybe not great, but good to great, depending on the year, for 45 to 50 years. Anytime Cam brings up a Miami team, game, or situation prior to 1990, not that he hasn't done his homework to educate himself on Miami pre-1990, but I at least can bow my chest a little bit, knowing that I at least watched the game and Cam did not at the time of the ball game. So I remember that game, and it was played in August. I will say that it was played in August, and I will leave the trivia question out to anyone without Googling it. Can somebody tell us where the game was played? That's a bit of a trick question, where the game was played in 1984. And it was, of course, a Miami team that had won the national championship in 83, coming off that championship season, taking on the preseason #1 Auburn Tigers in a neutral site game.
Yeah, I was also 3 years old, so did not watch that one live.
Yeah, I was not 3 years old.
Got it.
So I was geeked up for the beginning of college football. So, of course, I was watching the ball game. So anybody have any comments on anything? We'll be going through, of course, your comments and questions. Cam has consistently throughout this month, of course, outlined these recruiting weekends as we've looked back on the previous visitors and their experiences, and then look forward to the next weekend. So based on the last group of visits going back last weekend, and then looking ahead, your thoughts about where we stand?
Obviously, I think that Miami's in a foundation building time of the schedule for recruiting. You're bringing in a lot of other guys. Frank Bibbs, I would love it if you were correct that Shamar Stewart is headed to Miami. 5-star All-American from Monsignor Pace High School. DeMarcus Van Dyke, who's the cornerbacks coach now, he attended that school. Stephen Morris attended that school. Monsignor Pace, lots of other guys who attended, Pace, and done very well for themselves in the world of football. But somebody like Shamar Stewart, if he wants to come here, regardless of where he went to high school, with that size and that pedigree, I would take it. But he's a guy that Miami's building foundation with. He's been on campus 3 times in the first 2 weeks. So has Nigel E. Kelly from your visitors last weekend. Obviously, Trey Brown, he was on campus the first time that he got to connect with coaching staff in person, and he's massive. Like, he's a big kid. So he's like every bit of that 6'4" that he's listed at. And he was standing next to Isaiah Bond, who's committed to Florida, who's also from the state of Georgia, as a wide receiver. And if Isaiah Bond is 6 feet tall, then Ja'Cory Brown is 6'7", because the disparity in the height of them standing next to each other on a flat surface, just facing the camera, was quite stark. So you have that. But yeah, Miami was trying to make some moves and just really see where they stood with everybody. Quan Lee, the other commitment in this class, he shut down his recruitment and said, no, I'm coming to Miami. You have that Valente Carswell kid, the basketball player turned football player, and he's, becoming a priority of sorts on the offensive line. Isaiah Horton and Jaden Gibson, the wide receivers, Miami tried to make big moves for them. because you have Lee already, and then the Bond kid is probably going to stick with Florida. Like I said, Carswell already. Jacoby Spells seems to be between Miami and the team that's making a charge on social media, at least, is West Virginia. So looking out for that. There's a couple of defenders that were here. Justin Medlock and Bear Alexander from Texas. I'm not sure exactly how much the movement was, but there were positive postings on social media, but I'm taking those with not even a grain of salt, with like a heaping 5-pound block of salt until I see more from them, especially about coming back to Miami. If you go back a couple of weeks, Anthony Jones from Las Vegas, he committed to Texas on his visit as a defensive end. Miami was recruiting him at tight end. And that was his stated preference in college, to play offense, but he's going to go there to play defense, and Godspeed to him. Additionally, Sherrod Coville, who was down for the first day out cookout on June 1st, he committed to Clemson today, I believe. So, I mean, he was on the list. Obviously, we brought him in for the unofficial visit, which he paid for the first day out and everything, with that elite group of talent, and he found a fit that was better for him. So some people were like, oh, was he even on our radar? Like, bro, we brought him, or invited. That event was invite only. So if he was here, and do the math down the line. So we sent the invite. We, said, this time, this play, all these things. So yeah, he was on the list. He's a known 4-star recruit. You know what I mean? Like a blue chip player who could play here. So no, he was not like our number one. Got to have him. Oh my God, we put all this effort and money into him, a la when we were recruiting Michael Johnson Jr. at quarterback as the only quarterback in that year. We didn't put that kind of effort and time into Sherrod Coville, but to kind of minimize it and say that he was not a realistic target for Miami is reductive, I believe. Malik Agbo apparently did not take his official visit last weekend to LSU. The 4-star offensive tackle from the state of Washington. So that has Miami kind of feeling good. We'll see what his upcoming visits, Oklahoma and I think Washington. So those are big visits. Obviously he's from Washington, and Oklahoma is one of the better offensive teams, if not the best offensive team in the country. So there's that. So that's like just a little bit of everybody who's been on campus recently. And then this week we got another big week of 9 visitors that are scheduled as of right now. But the headliners are 2 names. And everything starts here and goes from there. Number 1 is Wesley DeSainth, the linebacker from Miami Central. Again, there's lots of people who said that he was the best linebacker on Miami Central's team last year, and that's a team with a 5-star recruit in the last cycle, Terrence Lewis, on the same defense, playing the same position. So you're saying I have a 5-star current year, but the underclassman is actually better right now and moving forward than this current 5-star. So that's the kind of talent that Wesley DeSainth has. Far and away, the number 1 target for Miami at linebacker is DeSainth. So the full court press is on. Everybody in America wants him. Obviously, West Virginia is also trending up for him a little bit because of a visit recently there. So I don't know why West Virginia seems to be trending up a lot. I know I've seen some chatter about this on social media. I have no idea. Really, just in general, not even related to Miami, but in general, a lot of West Virginia hype in terms of recruiting.
Good for them.
I mean, hey, whatever. It's all good. We've lost guys there before. Mike Harley was committed there, and then, Miami gave him a committable offer, and he came here. Ivan McCartney, when I was at Miramar High School, picked West Virginia because a lot of Miramar guys did, because the coach had gone there, and Geno Smith and Stedman Bailey had gone the year before, and things like that. I believe that Sticks should have come to Miami. I believe that Sticks believes the Sticks should have came to Miami. But hey, such is life.
West Virginia is a very strange program, but we'll get into that some other time.
Yeah.
From my perspective. Like they're usually good. They are a top 25 program. They're in that range. Mm-hmm. They're usually 8-4 good, but they never are great. But they've I know the population in the state's small. Their high school football playing pool cannot be that great. So I got to think where they're located, they've got to go into Pennsylvania and Ohio for a ton of players. Everybody goes to Florida, but I got to think that I don't know. They intrigue me for some reason.
Yeah, they do, and they definitely have that regional kind of approach. And because the regional for them is their local before going super national, again, in their approach. So they have that. So Wesley Saint, back in Miami focus, is the number one target at linebacker. He's the number one player on the list coming to campus this weekend. Alongside him is Kamari Rogers, the number one target at cornerback. He's from Holmes County High School in Lexington, Mississippi. And he's the number one target at corner. He's, 5'11", 6 feet tall. He's very athletic. He's got long arms, very skilled. And he's somebody that Miami is really, really, really trying to get in this class. He's a guy who came down for the first day out cookout on June 1st also. So that was his unofficial. Now you have an official. So again, remembering my personal, not rule in this one because it wasn't one of my rules, but my general operating principles for out-of-state targets, I need to see an unofficial where they pay their own way and an official visit where we paid the way for them before I really consider it to be a realistic recruitment. And when he shows up, I believe today, this evening for that visit, that will then have completed or enacted both the unofficial and official visit for Kamari Rogers. So yeah, he's a guy that Miami desperately wants in this class. So the list starts there. Those are two blue chip guys at positions of great need. On top of that, you have Corey Thomas, an athlete from Orlando Boone, also from Orlando, but Evans High School. Markeith Williams, a four-star safety. And he's a guy who's been trending up. Ishmael Aristide, the new strikers coach, went to Orlando Evans High School as a prep kid. So there's the connection there. Landon Abeta from Mandeville, Louisiana, is a 6'1" wide receiver who's a little, I think he's underrated for one as a 3-star. And you've just seen him light camps on fire everywhere. There's a video that people have been retweeting today of him at LSU's camp, and he lit some 5-star cornerback on fire and just turned him around the wrong way and just, And you can literally hear the guy who's by whoever was taking the video on the sideline say, "Oh, wait, who's that?" Because he's that kid. Like, whoa, who's this? But he's a kid who I would take here at Miami. I think he could play. I think he's in that Xavier Restrepo mold of just a kid who, if you want to talk colorism being a factor, maybe if he had a darker skin tone doing what he did, maybe it would be a thing where we're like, oh yeah, cool, okay, yeah, no, I'll take it. But he is a little lighter, so I'm not exactly sure what his ethnicity is because I won't guess from anybody from Louisiana. You know what I mean? Like it could be anywhere in there, but I will say that he is more fair skinned. So it could be that he's Caucasian. It could be that he's Creole, just on the lighter side, the more French side, as opposed to the native Louisianan side. I'm not sure, especially with the Creole name, Abeta, Ibieta. That gives me no insight. So I'm not, but if it was, if he had a darker skin tone and he was doing what he did, maybe it wouldn't be as shocking or whatever. But regardless of what his skin tone is, the kid can play. Go look up the video. Period. So he's a guy who I would take here at Miami. Stars be damned. You know what I mean? Like, I want the more stars that I can get, the most stars that I can get. But this is a kid who can play 3-star, 4-star, 5-star, 2-star. This is a kid who can play here. So that's a kid who's coming for an official visit this weekend. Anthony Lucas, a 4-star defensive tackle from Scottsdale, Arizona, is making his way down. That's another big area of need in this class because you want to pair somebody behind Leonard Taylor in the next class. And there's a couple other guys as well. So you really start again with the first two, Besaint and Rogers, and everything else goes from there. And we'll see what we can do.
We've got so many questions in the live chat, but still I'm going to ask a question. I don't even know exactly how to phrase it. It came to mind when you mentioned the kid from Scottsdale, Arizona, Miami, Florida. Okay, Miami's a national brand. Everybody knows who they are, what they've done. So I'm not questioning that in any way, such way. It's just, and I know we're in the age of technology, social media, video can be thrown everywhere online to say, boom, there it is. But in terms of discovering with all those players, those just waves and waves and waves and waves of players in state and especially in South Florida, that the Miami intel would become aware of this player out in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Yeah. I mean, you have guys who have worked all over the country. Obviously, Garen Justice came from UNLV, so that's in that area. Stephen Field has worked all over the country, even worked out at Oregon for a while. So he's recruited the West Coast as well, and recruited guys from, we recruited Michael Johnson Jr. from Oregon, even though he went somewhere else. That was the connection there. You've recruited multiple guys from Las Vegas and gotten them in here, whether it's straight out of high school with Brevin Jordan, a couple transfers, and Tate Martell and Bubba Bolden. Also, you bring in the Anthony Jones kid, also the gigantic tight end who went to Georgia to not catch passes, Darnell Washington, from Las Vegas as well, which is in the general area, and things like that. And yeah, maybe you have the player reach out, maybe you have a coach reach out, maybe there's a thing where there's, in the media, like, oh, hey, like what school are you looking for and things like that. Where it gets out there and, somebody sees that and passes along to somebody in the athletic department and say, hey, this kid is a kid who actually can play here, but also has spoken up Miami from a distance. So, those are the ways I think that the gap of distance is bridged in these kind of thing.
All right, let's march through these questions. There's a ton of them. Here we go. Mr. Bank, 1. Cam, who's better, Chance Williams or Nigel Kelly? Also the same for defensive tackles, Taylor and Lucas.
As high school prospects, sheesh, that's a good one. As a high school prospect, I would say Chance Williams. As a high school prospect, Leonard Taylor was top 5 in America, like number 3 overall, number 1 state of Florida. Yeah. So I would say those two.
Chris Gons, ding, 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 ding. You're the winner. The Auburn-Miami game of '84 was played in the Kickoff Classic at the Meadowlands. All right. Cam, what have you heard on the progress of De'Ara King at this point?
Not a whole lot. But every time that anybody is asked about it, he has been spoken of as really progressing well. You've seen him walking around. There was that community service event that marched to end gun violence the other day, where he was seen walking around and everything. So I'm just going to assume that he is continuing his Wolverine-like recovery from that ACL injury and will be back for the opener. Until I hear otherwise, because that's what everyone has said at every step along the way when asked. And there's not been anything behind the scenes, like written, said, spoken, heard by me, or I can't speak for anybody else, but I haven't read or seen anything. I haven't, anybody I've spoken to or anything has not said, okay, well, yeah, we're really planning on one of the freshman kids for the opener. So I'm going to believe them at their word at this point, just because I don't think that there's the margin for error to really do anything other than put your best players out there. And De'Ara King is probably the best player on the roster. So, yeah.
To segue into the next question, is it just me, or is Miami making more substantial inroads to Texas than they have in the past?
Yes. And that's, I think, a concerted effort. Also, I didn't mention him in the previous question about coaches being from or working elsewhere, but John Packey is from Texas, the inside linebackers coach. So, he was an analyst, and he got a couple 5 stars on campus when he first got promoted to outside backers or strikers coach a couple of years ago. They ended up not coming here, but the fact that he was even able to get them late in the cycle, because he didn't get promoted till January when they got the 10th assistant ad. But being promoted late and then getting them to take an official visit before signing day in February was yeoman's work in and of itself. So that's been, consistent over time. Obviously, we have Corey Flagg, who's from Houston, on the roster. You've recruited some other guys. Cameron Williams from the same area, if not the same high school. I think it's a different high school. As an offensive lineman. He was in on an official visit last weekend, but I think that Miami's looking in a different direction on offensive line. But, we're bringing in different guys. We've recruited the state of Texas. Not widespread, but it's been targeted, but it's definitely been more intentional over the course of the last few years. And I think that we're seeing that, obviously, when you have guys from, Duncanville and Manvel, and things like that. And then, I've overlooked the biggest star from the state of Texas on our roster, De'Ara King, a legend in that state in high school football. No, he did not come here straight out of high school or anything. But, when you have him and he's, I'm from Houston. I went to Houston, did that, started as a wide receiver. And then they're like, our quarterback play isn't great. He's like, hey, me, this guy right here. I got you. And got them and did all of that. And now he's here in Miami. So you can see what a Texan with talent can do in this space and everything, along with other Texans from years past and playing those things up. We have seen an uptick in a little bit of Texas being one of the target states for our national recruiting.
Bear Alexander's highly sought after top 30 national prospect, 7th rated according to 247 Sports as a defensive lineman, 6'3", 325. Tevin Franklin wondering what the chances are.
I don't think that there's a chance until he takes an unofficial visit. I think that there's still work to be done, and I think that there's everybody in America who wants him because 6'3", 325 men who are strong as he is and surprisingly quick for someone that size do not just grow on trees. But Elliott had a whole big piece at 247 Sports right when he transitioned from SB Nation with us over there about the lack of beef on the West Coast of the United States in terms of recruiting, about guys, defensive and offensive linemen who are 275 pounds or larger for various reasons. You can go look at that piece, and he did a great job of laying that out because that's what Bud does. But so if you have an area like a whole entire coast of the country that doesn't have guys of this size, someone of that size who exists anywhere is now going to become a very high level prospect when he has the talent and highly recruited as well. I think that Miami did themselves a good service by having a positive recruiting event for him when he came and took his official visit and things like that. But I don't consider this real until there's an unofficial visit for him. Maybe that could be Paradise Camp in a little bit. Maybe that could be a game or something that he figures a way down to South Florida. But and that's just my mindset again with any elite out-of-state target. Until I see that second visit, I don't consider it real. But we are on the list. We are still communicating, and hopefully we can continue to forge that relationship moving forward.
We did address the 12-team playoff proposal last week, correct?
Did.
Okay, I believe so. I thought so.
I will say
that so many people. Yeah, go ahead.
No, there was a thing I saw from SI. I need to actually go through it, but they considered all kinds of different structures for it. The incredible thing is, before the pandemic, the committee decided on 12. So you're talking like February 2020 is when they decided on going to 12 and swore everybody to secrecy while they're going through the process or whatever, until such a time as they felt comfortable to, broach it and bring it forward, especially only a couple of years out from when it's going to be enacted. But this is the thing that they've known while we've all been, hey, maybe they'll help. And they're just sitting back at home, sipping on bourbon, like, maybe we will, maybe we won't. But what we did do already is this 12. So I thought that was interesting from the tweet. I need to actually dig more into the article from Sports Illustrated about the decision-making process, the evaluation process, and even the timeline, which again has been set for the entire team. You're talking about that 15-month dead period. Longer than that has been the decision made that they're going to 12. So that's kind of crazy to me.
I did not know that. Good info to have. I'll have to look up that article as well. C. John asked about the kicking game in general, and also now asking about specifically Jose Borregales, his brother, of course, as the starting kicker this year.
Yeah. Andres is his name, or Andy Borregales, the younger brother, taking over the number 30. And yes, he's going to be the starting kicker because you have one scholarship kicker, and that's going to be him. So, yeah, I expect solid kicking. I don't expect like 57 and 60-yard bombs in game that we got from his brother last year when he won the Grozer Award. But I do expect, I would say 85, 90% or higher on field goals. I would say maybe, obviously, you got to get the game experience to get comfortable with it. But again, this is a kid who did it at the championship level in high school with Chaminade and then Champagnat after he transferred, because you could early enroll if you went to Champagnat, but not if you go to Chaminade. So he's, had great coaching along the way. He's been a top level prospect. He has his brother there, and everything. His family's, strong on that development as well, both as a person and as an athlete. So yeah, I'm expecting him to do good things. I'm expecting high accuracy rate, pinpoint kicks, a strong leg, because we've seen that from both him and his brother. Again, I don't expect it to be 100% makes. I don't expect it to be bombing from 60, but I would say comfortably from 45 and in, we should be able to go to him. So basically, if you're talking from the 28, so basically if you cross the 30, you should be in scoring range. I think that's reasonable. And yeah, I expect him to just to come in. And again, kicker and punter is a place where you can play early. And I mean, not at punter, obviously, because we have a 30-year-old or almost who's an amazing punter. Walter Camp, preseason first team All-American punter, is Lewis Headley. But yeah, from Andres Borgales, I expect big things. And I think that he expects big things from himself.
All right, folks, listen up here. There are a number of ways you can help us here on the channel, but specifically related to this show. Number one, hit the like button. So don't leave this show. Jump into the show initially each week. Get into the habit of hitting the like button. It helps with the YouTube algorithms. Okay. Number two, share the link out there on social media and just basically share the word, spread the word. And whether that's sharing the link on social media or just retweeting my tweet that I send out prior to each show, or just talking to people, just directly talk to friends, family, just let them know, hey, we love Miami football. There's a great show every Thursday night. Cam Underwood, 7 o'clock. Boom. Be there. If you can't be there live, check out the replay, of course. And then in addition to that, consider contributing, whether that be through the Super Chat here, or if you hit me up on Venmo, PayPal, or Cash App, and you bypass certain YouTube conditions, I'll just say that, then please be specific in targeting this specific show. But we want to do this for a long time, and we want to make it worthwhile for Cam because he brings a ton of insight to this deal and has forever. He's probably my longest running guest. Yeah, I think that's, I will say that for sure. He is my longest running guest going back to 2013. And
wow.
I believe it was the Teddy Bridgewater, Louisville, I hate to bring it up, game in the Russell Athletic Bowl. It was somewhere around there. You gave me a preview and you gave me post game.
I did. After my boy Shan Patrick and I drove back that night because we didn't want to spend on the hotel and everything. So we hopped straight in the car. And that was back in the days of the old Mustang, for those who've been following me for a while. It was not necessarily the greatest vehicle, but that day it did me all right, if that was the only thing that happened. But yeah. So since then, that's crazy.
So again, folks, we would like to do this for a long time together. Cam's been just a mainstay here, and I've got to credit the growth here on this channel and my main channel to a lot of people, including Cam, and he would be high on that list. So please consider contributing that way as well. We should build this audience by a ton. We really should. If everybody that watches this, which is typically 120, 130 people that we get on here at some point during the stream, would go out there and tell 2 or 3 people or 10, just keep that in mind. All right. Got the Wholesome One talking about contributors. Wholesome One, we always appreciate you. We just finished up a segment with the Wholesome One. Got a question for Cam here. Your biggest question marks about the defense in 2021 and how
linebacker,
you would handle those question marks. And then he's got some examples right there.
Number one is linebacker. And I think that we got to play the guys that we need to play. I've talked about it already. Whether that's Corey Flagg, whether that's a Sam Brooks, whether that's an Avery Huff. We need to be more athletic in linebacker, period. Because when you're athletic, you can overcome some of the other mistakes, some of the mental mistakes and things like that. Plus, I think that being more athletic is going to be helpful for the defense overall. So, yeah, playing the guys that we need to play. And not playing guys who are net negative. Bradley Jennings Jr., that's the name that I've been hinting at for a while. But if you just look when he's on the field, he's been such a net negative. There were statistics, and Daniel Gould, he does statistics and everything. He does like on off, with the player on, like basketball, like when he's on the field or court off, same kind of things. But there were large swaths of last season that Bradley Jennings Jr. was his performance was so terrible that it was like we were playing with 10 men on defense. Like, you might as well not. That's how much of a deleterious performance he had to the defense. It was atrocious. So I need to not see him getting 600 snaps on defense again. You know what I mean? That's the number one. You got to play the guys who need to play. Number two is cornerback, because we just have a low number of players at that position and a low number of guys, by definition, since we have a low number, who have the experience. And so you're going to lean on Tyreek Stevenson, number one. You know what I mean? You're going to lean on, hopefully, to Corey Couch inside at the slot. And I know that, like, cornerbacks have this outsized ego, prime time. I want to be on the island and everything. Bro, you're 5'8.5". I'm sorry. Being outside, covering the X receiver everywhere that he goes, it simply is not going to be a positive thing for us because of your lack of height. So if it comes to the catch point and we're talking about jumping up, bro, you got a receiver who's 6'3", 6'4", that's 6-7 inches difference, and you got the jump in the reach, there can be perfect coverage with an all right throw, and he will out-athletic you because he can out-athletic you, and he has this difference in size. I'm sorry, bro. But if you work inside, all these slot receivers who will eat us alive and tear us apart, you can lock that down. So I want to see that. And then, hopefully a big step forward from either or both Al Blaze Jr. and or DJ Ivey as the other cornerback. And then we have, Marcus Clark. We have the Malik Curtis kid coming in and playing defense. We also have Isaiah Dunson on the roster as well. I need to see big steps forward. But, yeah, how I'm addressing cornerback, I think, has already been done by talent acquisition. Tyreek Stevenson, number one, putting him at the top of that cornerback rotation is a huge, huge, huge value add because otherwise it would have been to Corey Couch. And, again, I'm not comfortable with Miami having a 5'8.5", 5'9" corner as their number one overall cornerback. It just won't work. I'm sorry. So you add Tyreek Stevenson, Corey Couch continues to get better, and the other guys continue to get better. We will see. On a regular
question,
right? Playing Playing out or Auburn on a regular basis, no. However, in 29 and 30, yes. And we're not going to play any out-of-conference team on a regular basis, absent a bowl game kind of a thing. So, yeah, it's not on a regular, but we do have a home-and-home series scheduled with them in 2029 and 2030.
I have suddenly lost track of where I was and where I was going to next for the next question.
Something about Padkey, Alabama or something?
There's a lot of Padkey comments after you mentioned him in the connection to Texas. But, yeah, he's great. He's trash. Okay.
Yes, he's a polarizing figure among the coaching staff for sure.
All right. Bergie. Cam, how many more commitments do you think Miami will get before the season starts? Do you think most will wait till after the season?
I think we're going to start to see some movement coming here soon. I wanted to see movement in June, but it looks like that's going to be July. A lot of kids who were on the list that we're recruiting right now are setting commitment dates into the month of July. So I think that's when we're going to really start to see movement that will have gone through the month of June through visits. And that's a lot of different guys. That's Jacoby Spells. That's I'm blanking on the list right now, but there's more than just Jacoby Spells who have already said, okay, July is going to be their month when they're making the commitment coming up. Some are the 4th of July, some are a little bit after. So there's things like that. The other thing I wanted to say, just so that I wrapped up that piece with a bow as well. That's funny because that's his name. Bo Atkinson came down for the cookout. He's from Leesville Road High School in Raleigh, North Carolina, the same high school that produced Braxton Berrios. He has decided to stay home in the state of North Carolina and is committed to North Carolina and Mac Brown, a couple of days ago as well. So just to put a bow on that, because I know people might say, oh, we have other defensive ends on the board or guys we might bring in. So, yeah, there have been already 3 guys who have committed elsewhere recently. Mr. HD, I hope that you are correct, that even though I don't even have kids of my own, that we get that Father's Day present of Kamari Rogers committing to Miami this Father's Day weekend on his visit. This is I think that you kind of have to kind of test the temperature of the room. You know what I mean? Before you really push hard or like kind of give ultimatums or things to recruits. But like Kamari Rogers this weekend, I think that I'm going pedal to the metal to get him to commit right now. I think that we're in that kind of spot. I think that things are trending that way. I think that we're letting some other prospects do their own thing. But I think the time is right with Kamari Rogers this weekend on this official visit to start to push or really try to have a closing kick to get a commitment here. So I hope that you're right, and I think that pushing for that from him in this weekend would be something that I'm in favor for, and I hope that they do, and I hope that it comes through.
So I apparently messed up this week when my daughter asked me what I wanted for Father's Day, that I didn't say Kamari Rogers commit.
Ha! I mean, look, I've seen lots of people say that on the timeline. I know Kev Robbins, shout out to Kev, has said that. I know JP also, who contributed for State of the U, but he doesn't have any children. He's just like, yeah, I want that for Father's Day as well. So, I mean, hey, I'll take it.
Daniel had asked before, this is a very general question, but I think it could spur on a pretty rudimentary or basic discussion, but I'll have my take on it. Just basically, how competitive is Miami going to be this year? That's what he asked.
Okay. That's a good question. I think that we should be. I think that we're seeing a Manny Diaz coached team won't quit, for one. So I expect that narrative competitiveness, that anecdotal competitiveness to exist in every game, where we will play every single snap to our best. I think you spelled that website wrong.
Oh, yeah. I juxtaposed the H and the T.
Yeah. Okay. I was like, yeah. But no worries. State of the THEU.com. So, yeah, I think that we're going to be a team that fights every game. We're going to play strongly every single week. And again, mistakes might happen, but I think that's going to be complete buy-in and everything like that. So on the anecdotal side, there's that. In terms of wins and losses, I think that Miami, again, the absolute floor should be 9 wins. And if that is, that should hopefully put you in contention for an ACC Coastal Division championship. If you win more than that, that should put you in, leave you in that and push towards even more, depending on how things shake. But yeah, Miami should be, with the talent that's on this roster, with the specific players who are coming back on this roster and what they offer to this team. Miami should be very competitive in terms of wins and losses on the field. I will also say that based upon the schedule and based upon the talent on the roster, Miami should have been more productive or competitive in terms of wins and losses in previous seasons than they have been. So it is entirely possible that we do not reach the level of performance that most of us expect from the schedule that we're facing and the talent on this roster. I hope that this is finally where things start to curl over and come together, where we have an advantageous schedule and we have a talented roster and we take advantage of those things. But even though that is my evaluation and expectation, we have seen in recent past where Miami has failed to meet that expectation. So there could be that as well.
I scurried to look through both Lindy's and Athlons that are sitting right here, and I'm not finding a record in Lindy's, but it's got to be very comparable to Athlons because they're both selecting Miami as the 14th ranked team in the country, and Athlons has Miami at 9-3, 6-2 in the conference.
Got mine right here.
Yeah, there we go. Right there, dueling Athlons and Lindy's. Yes.
Yep.
Right there with you. So, So the national publications are saying 9-3. To extend off of what Cam had to say, this is my thought, and it's been my thought generally for the last few seasons, even though I think Miami's in much better shape organizationally than they've been the last few seasons, is that if you go game to game to game, okay, there's an obvious underdog role and prominent underdog status against Alabama and about a 10% chance of winning that game. So that's most likely a loss. Okay, other than that, Miami plays one team that can match them in roster talent. And again, going beyond the talent, but beyond the talent, but what we've seen out of the coaching staff, the development of the players, and that's obviously North Carolina. Okay. Other than that, Miami is substantially, decidedly better than everybody else on the schedule. So that would lead you to the conclusion of 10-2 should be the worst record that they have, because you've got one team that's substantially better, one team that's comparable. That should be a toss-up game. Okay, it's on the road. Maybe it's 60-40 Carolina. And then other than that, they're decidedly not like they can walk in and win the game by 50 points against fill in the blank Virginia Tech. Not to that degree, but decidedly, like there's not an argument. It's not a discussion. They're better than everybody in the Coastal other than Carolina. They're better than the two teams that they play in the Atlantic. But once you start to group games together, obviously, if they played a 50-game season, and even if they played all these teams that they are decidedly better than, there becomes a greater probability that they're going to slip up against somebody. Well, they've been slipping up 3 and 4 times. If they can limit that to maybe 1, they could possibly still win the Coastal if they beat Carolina head-to-head. That should be the game of the year. That should be the must-win game for the division. Now, crazy things happen and unexpected to all of us that change the outcomes of these division races, but that's what it looks like right now to me, that they should be a 10-2 team.
It fits 100%. I saw the 247 Sports predicted 10-2 as well. But that's why I say the floor should be 9-3. That's basically 10-2 plus, or if you switch one of the should be wins and you stumble. But like, that's where the expectation, that's the target level there and greater, not 7-5 and, 8, even 8-4. No, man, I just don't want to see that. In answering the last question, before I forget, how vulnerable is Clemson? It comes down to Uiagalelei, honestly. And I don't know if he's going to be the guy or whatever, but they're not going to have generational quarterback after generational quarterback again and again and again. They're going to have injuries. They're going to have guys miss. They're going to turn the ball over. All the things that they have not done in many a year are going to start happening, and I don't know necessarily vulnerable, but they're not as I sit here right now on June 17th. So let me timestamp this so y'all don't take this out of context. But on June 17th, looking at Clemson, they're not the monster that they were with Sunshine Lawrence, with Travis Etienne, who for no reason should have been on campus for 4 years and terrorized us in that game last year. With all their defensive linemen who came back again that year and then win in the first round of the NFL draft, all those things. They're not, in my estimation, looking at where their program is right now in June, they do not seem to be at that same exact caliber of team. Now, if you're talking about a fractional difference, okay, yeah, are they close to that? Sure. They still have 4- and 5-star talent everywhere? Yes. Is, what's his name, Venables, still over there because he'll never leave? Even though he should have been left many a time for a head coaching job? Yup. Is that frustrating? Absolutely. But I do believe that there is a difference as I look at them today in June to what the beast has been for them in recent years. Does that mean I expect Miami to beat them this year? Probably not. Does that mean that I expect Clemson to drop 2 ACC games randomly or something like that? Absolutely not. But at least until they prove it on the field, there's at least the scintilla of a question about them this year that I think, that has not existed for Clemson in recent years.
To further your point, once again, the Clemson teams in 15-16 skipped 17 because even though they were playoff good, it was Kelly Bryant at quarterback. And then in 18, those teams were the national champion or losing to Alabama by that much. They were right there. They were the best. Okay.
And just to interrupt you really quickly, in 17, Kelly Bryant and them blew our doors off anyway. So I'm not even going to exclude them from the conversation because that team still gave us the business. But continue.
The last two college football playoff appearances, though, may give us a glimpse to the program leveling off just a bit. LSU was all-time good on offense. I understand that. And the game was closer than the final score because it was a really good game with about 10 minutes left, 28-25. Then LSU took them to the woodshed the last 10 minutes. But it was a competitive game for most of the way. Then an Ohio State team that, in my estimation, even though they made the national championship game last year, was not any kind of vintage Ohio State team. It was a run-of-the-mill Ohio State team. Blew them out. So the thing about Clemson, though, that you don't have with the other elites, Alabama, if they slip up, LSU's right there. Texas A&M's right there. Auburn's right there. If Georgia slips up, Florida's right there. Even Kentucky's better than anybody in the ACC Atlantic Division right now, et cetera, et cetera. If Ohio State slips up, Penn State, Michigan, maybe Michigan State at some point, Indiana right now is actually pretty good. Clemson, they were just so much better than everybody else in that division that we may see it in this Georgia game or when they have to play a crossover against a North Carolina or a Miami, which they don't this year.
Yeah, they missed both of us. That's crazy.
But they play in this bubble that they just run roughshod over. Yeah, but I agree. They are more vulnerable than they've been. Yes.
But even with their program seeming to level out a little bit, they're leveling out at 38,000 feet, and we're trying to get up there. You know what I mean? So I mean, it's just like, yeah, are they leveling out a little bit and not still ascending and getting better? Because from this run, the crazy thing is they've not been missing on many players. They've had incredible development. They've had no injuries, really, to speak of. And again, Mike Williams, I know he got injured in the wide receiver Ross. He got injured and things like that. I'm not going to discount those things. But those were not game-changing because you had somebody else who could step in and, okay, fine. You know what I mean? And they've had generational quarterback after better generational quarterback, one after the other. So, yeah, I mean, leveling off is one thing. But then, again, you know, is Miami ascending to the level where we can overcome where Clemson has leveled off at? I don't necessarily know, and I don't think so right now. It would take an incredible game. You know, that Lamar Jackson Louisville game there in Death Valley, that's Saturday night when Eli Rogers went out of bounds instead of cutting it back and scoring and winning that game. It's going to take that kind of performance from everybody if we get the opportunity to really crest that hill. But, you know, we'll hopefully see about that at a later date.
Tabardine, I did not say that Kentucky was better than Miami. I said that Kentucky was better than everybody else in the Atlantic Division.
The other division. The Florida State division. The division that's really Clemson and the Pips. Yeah. To answer the other question, what do I expect from Miami, Florida State this year? Another Miami win by 4 touchdowns or more. I don't really think it's going to be competitive. I don't think that it's going to be close. I think that Florida State, again, and I've said this in multiple other shows. You can go back and look up the videos because they're right there and you can hear it in the same exact voice. I'm going to say it to you now. I think that Florida State is a couple of years away from even being in the conversation to beat Miami. I think that we're clearly in a different strata than they are. I think that the dysfunction is there. I think that the dearth of talent is there. They're just not, they're not even Florida State. And they're not anywhere near what Florida State is or anything like that. And Miami is not necessarily back. We're not championship Miami, but we are more a facsimile of a good, great Miami program than they are of even a competent Florida State program. And I think that's going to be borne out again on the field in October, November, whenever we play them. It's not going to be close.
The Florida State product on the field, especially last year, it was building up to as bad as it was last year. The previous 2 seasons was like unrecognizable.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, yeah, they go back and look at that game, man. You know, and like I know everybody was scared, and you know people were calling me crazy for calling the incredible blowout because I called it beforehand. So this is not even. this is going to be biblical, this reckoning. This is going to be a beat down of epic proportions. And it was. People were like, oh, well, it's Florida State. Da, da, da. That was not Florida State. Like, the people who were on that team, they should have been ashamed. They should not even have. That was not a Florida State. That didn't approach anything like a Florida State. That was I don't even know, Middle Tennessee State, maybe? You know what I mean? Like, and maybe not even that. It was, like unrecognizable, not even terrible. But hey, 52-10. I love it.
Louisville went 4-7. They beat Florida State by 32 points. Pitt beat them by 30-some points.
Yeah.
Like,
because it was week after week with those haymaker blowouts by 5 and 6 and 7 touchdowns. Week after week after week. Clemson was merciful with them. That was we beat them by 6 touchdowns, and Clemson was better than us. Because Clemson beat us head-to-head last year. Clemson literally, not figuratively, like, sometimes, literally came into that game and could have picked the score that they wanted, regardless of what it was, all the way up to that 228-0 Cumberland College Georgia Tech game from 1873 or whatever. They could have picked the score and made that happen. And I guess they were, we're going to, whatever. But it was a literal choose your own adventure, choose your own score game from the moment that it came on the schedule for Clemson and Florida State last year. It was atrocious.
So if Florida State holds on to some semblance of the recruiting class that they're building right now, they're probably in a position, because of what they've shown recently and how bad that they've been, is they're probably going to, especially with a coach who's going to be fighting for his job, if he turns in another, let's say, 4-8 kind of year, they're going to rush some of these really good players who probably aren't ready into starting and high backup positions.
Yeah, you will. Travis Hunter is everybody's All-American, the 5-star.
Well,
So he's a kid who's going to play early anywhere. I still want him to save his career and not go to Florida State. Just in the interest of the kid. I really, honestly, and truly do. But hey, if that's what he wants to do because he's a Florida State fan, he grew up a Florida State fan, and he wants to, wear the garnet and gold. If you like it, I love it for you, and I wish you all the best, but I really wish he would come to his senses and go somewhere else. But yeah, I would probably integrate mid-season. So if this recruiting class for Florida State currently holds, in 2022, I would say around that 5th or 6th game, I'm layering those guys in for more and more reps all the way through the season, with an eye on 2023 and really 2024. Really, maybe 2023, because I don't think that Norvell would get a 24 if it goes poorly again. But if you get to 2023, get a couple guys from the transfer portal, which, funnily enough, they were making jokes of because Miami couldn't field a team. They had to go, transfer you. And all of a sudden, they're trying to bridge gaps on their roster and plug holes and things with the transfer portal. It's funny how that all of a sudden is the right thing to do when you were talking crap about it for 3 years, but whatever. But if you're them, the goal has to be keep most of these guys, rotate them in this next 2022 season when they're freshmen, with an eye to develop them further and then get more recruits and a couple transfers to plug in some holes on that roster for 2023. That would be the target for me if I were at Florida State. But I'm not, so they can burn and rot. Go Canes.
We'll consider this dilemma. We'll make a young Cam Underwood a high school junior or senior around 2008 or 9. So we're going to make you a little bit younger, 2008 or 9, as a Michigan fan before you dreamed of going to Vanderbilt and then Miami. And Rich Rod, and he's going 3-9 one of those seasons at Michigan. And every power in the country is knocking on your door, blowing up your cell phone.
I'll have the memories that I had of Michigan and going to those games when I was a child, and I'm going to look somewhere else.
Yeah.
Perfectly honestly. If it were me, because that program was going in such a negative direction with no glimmer of hope. Getting these top recruiting classes, we're getting all these good players who everybody wanted, and just getting worse and worse and worse and worse on the field. So, yeah, I probably wouldn't be in for that.
We're going to honor a pretty obvious question here just because it speaks to Miami and connecting them with the playoff format that's being proposed, but somebody asked, does the new 12-team playoff proposal help Miami? Well, it helps everyone.
Including, Miami would have been one of the teams, had this existed throughout the entire range of the playoff, that would have made the playoff in 2017 as the number 10 seed, I believe is what it was. So, like, again, if you're talking about going from a handful of teams making the playoff with only 4 teams, I believe the research showed it was like 38 teams would have made it. So, like, almost a quarter of FBS division teams, including Miami. There's your sign, like there's your thing, like there's your proof right there. So, yeah, I mean, it helps. And then again, this is a thing where, even at 10-2, 9-3, if you're pushing for, one of those top 12 slots, or 10-3, you lose the ACC championship game, but you still have a high ranking because you have a good showing against Clemson, because it's going to be Clemson and nobody else from that division. And then maybe you stay in the top 12 and, you go on the road in the first round or something like that. Like those are things that are entirely attainable, and even if you're looking at this season, if this were to be a year with 12, that's a scenario that could play itself out, or could have, if this was 12 for this current football season. So yeah, it's a help, just because it expand, like you have 200% more seats. You know what I mean? Like instead of 4, you got 12, like triple the amount of bids, so an additional, 8 on there. Yeah, that helps everybody who's fighting for that. And if you consider yourself a high-level program, a championship-level program, you got to get in it to win it. And having more spaces to do that should be helpful for everybody, including your Miami Hurricanes.
The only teams or programs that it potentially hurts are obviously the teams that would make the playoffs anyway, because they've got to fight through more teams to win a championship. But when Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State slip up and have a, God forbid, 10-2 season, well, they're still going to be making the playoff now, where they would have missed it before, like Bama did in 2019 and the other 2 did at other times. Ironically, based on our first conversation of who Miami's playing in 8 years, in that 2017 postseason, because I'm posting videos on what the 12-team playoff would have looked like during all the college football playoff seasons, Miami would have played right there.
Auburn,
the 7 seed that season in the playoff. Man, as a college football fan, you just got to love matchups like that.
Yeah.
My goodness. We would have had, I'm sorry to cut you off. We would have had Alabama, UCF, the year UCF was that darling 13-0 team. We would have had Wisconsin, Washington, Auburn, Miami, USC, Penn State. That would have been our first round games. The Auburn-Miami winner would have played Oklahoma. The Wisconsin-Washington winner would have played Georgia. The Bama-UCF winner would have played Ohio State, and the USC-Penn State winner would have played Clemson. Oh, my word. Those games are great games. Matchups.
Yeah, and I mean, like, that wasn't even that was a fine team, but, like, Brandon Cox at quarterback, Brad Lester and Ben Tate at running back, nobody of note at wide receiver.
We're talking about the Auburn team?
Yeah.
No, that was Jarrett Stidham.
In
17?
Sorry. I put 2007. Excuse me, not 17.
17. Jarrett Stidham.
Yeah, Stidham. He's fine.
Yeah, drafted.
Right, but he wasn't anything like super crazy. Kerryon Johnson, Carlton Davis, Daniel Carlson, Brandon Smith. Those are the guys who were drafted off that team. That's a team, or that's a game that, like, I feel good about.
I think Auburn would have been a decent sized favorite, 5-6. They were good that year. They beat 2 number 1 teams in November, Georgia and Alabama. They lost the SEC championship game rematch to Georgia.
Right, but that would have been a good team, or it was a good team. But, like, Oh, Malik Willis was on that team, who's probably going to be in the conversation for the first quarterback taken this year. That's funny. But yeah, I mean, you had Kerryon Johnson, who was drafted by your Detroit Lions, but is now not there anymore. Cameron Petway, Cam Martin. I mean, so they have running backs. Eli Stove, Darius Slayton at wide receiver, the Nate Craig kid, who, I mean, Miami was recruiting, but he really never amounted to anything. You got 2 offensive linemen in there. Marlon Davidson is a sophomore, so before he turned into the monster that he ended up being. Jeff Holland is a junior, another Florida kid over there. Carlton Davis, Jamel Dean. I mean, so yeah, they had a good squad and everything, but like, I see there's no reason Miami couldn't have won that game. I mean, other than the obvious, but if you know, you know.
Yeah, I know. and if I had you select and depict one play to describe it, you would be going back to the first quarter of the ACC championship game to let us know why Miami would have lost that game.
Either that or the first play of the second quarter of the Orange Bowl against Wisconsin. You know, I mean, for everybody who's wondering what I'm talking about, the quarterback Malik Rogers, he was the reason that we were not going to go and win that game because he didn't have the juice. He didn't.
Or the dozen times that Braxton Berrios made a diving catch on a ball that shouldn't have been a diving catch where he could have run for 30 yards, but he had to make a diving catch on like a 7-yard curl. Yeah.
So, I mean, it just that I'm here talking about, there's no reason that we could have won this game. And 12. That's the reason. Like that. And especially, and that was Muschamp as defensive coordinator. Oh, God. They would. Yeah, no, he would have dialed up something nasty.
No, he was at South Carolina.
Was he at South Carolina then? Oh, no, because I was looking at the 07 team first. My bad. It's still stuck in my brain. But yeah, that would have been not necessarily great. But hey, we would have been in the playoff.
Would have been in the playoff. So and while we're playing the what ifs, if Brad Kaya would have stuck around a year, then you would have had a better team. And then it would have really been a competitive game. Good stuff. I think we've about wrapped it up for tonight. Cam Underwood, State of the U. Anything we need to know?
Just lots going on. We're into our summer content over at State of the U. So we got game previews, player previews, position profiles, coaches stuff. Obviously, I put up the thing about the home and home. Put up with Auburn that when that was announced, got that up on the website. We got Top 5 Tuesdays. My guy John Michaels is back doing those. So he gave you his Top 5 Tuesday with, I believe, his game day playlist. And people have been in the comments adding their essential songs. So we have all that and plenty more coming up for you. So coming over to stateoftheu.com right there. Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at The State of the U. My personal Twitter account is at Underwood Sports, and we're always there for you. So please come over and fan with us. We already had our self-scouting by Justin DeTavio, who scouted the Miami Hurricanes coming into next season. And then we have summer scheming, where we are looking early at every opponent. And he put up the one looking at the Alabama Crimson Tide. I believe that went up today. So if you're looking for hardcore X's and O's, we have that. If you're looking for narrative and other kind of things, we have that as well. So full service for you. Come on over. And always plenty of recruiting stuff. So after I get off of here, I'm going to have your visit preview for this weekend up as well. So plenty of content. So please come over and fan with us over at State of the U.
All right, everyone, please share this video link, and we will see you next week. Again, subscribe, hit the bell for the notifications, because we're typically here Thursday night at 7, but that's not guaranteed. So hit those notifications so you know when we're going live. Cam, as always, much appreciated, man.
No problem, brother. We'll see you soon.